Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Sports Radio Network and Sports Corner with the Conn Man. I am your host, the Conn Man, and today I have a very special guest, um, one of the, legendary coaches coming out of the Big East and et cetera, and looking forward to having him on. His name is Mike Jarvis, and when he comes on, I'm here to give him his flowers and let you know a little bit about him because what a special coach he was and is. And so looking forward to having him come on my show. But, it was kind of funny. I'm waiting for him to come on because it's kind of like a dichotomy because we have quite a few things in common. I want to wait for him to come on before I go into detail. But I was looking at his bio, and I was checking him out, and I'm like, wow, so many things that I recognize. And I forgot, you know what I mean? Because, I'm kind of old as dirt. But there's so many things in common. And while we're waiting for him to come on, I don't want to, I'm just here to give him his flowers. And matter of fact, I'm going to do it right now. Because I usually start my show off and I ask my guests to go through their grind and their journey. Well, let me give you a little something about Mr. Mike Jarvis. Coach Mike Jarvis, a legendary East Coast basketball figure known for his decades as a Division I head coach at institutions like Boston University, George Washington University, and St. John's University, leading his teams to multiple NCAA tournament appearances, including an Elite Eight and a Sweet 16. After a successful high school coaching career where he coached a young Patrick Ewing, I think you all know who that guy is, Jarvis became one of the most celebrated Black American coaches in college basketball history. He later coached at Florida Atlantic University, served as an ESPN commentator, and wrote 3 books on leadership. Okay, he coached Cambridge Latin, where he led his team to 3 consecutive Massachusetts State High School championships, with Pat Ewing being one of his star pupils. They went and had a record of 77-1, 77-1 loss. And then he went on and had a great coaching career. He's in the Hall of Fame at George Washington. And, he's written 3 books. He's the author of 3 books, the latest one being The 7 C's of Leadership. And hopefully he'll come on and talk about that, it's crazy because I might as well tell him. I'll tell him when he comes on. But it's like funny because when he was at BU, he, as assistant coach, was Kyle Hobbs. Kyle Hobbs played for him at Cambridge Latin. Kyle Hobbs then went to UConn and played for UConn, while one of my best friends in the world, Dave Lato, was playing at Northeastern. Check out how this comes about. So Kyle Hobbs was assistant coach at BU. Dave played for Jim Calhoun at Northeastern. And then he went with Calhoun, which is kind of a funny but true story. Dave, after he graduated, he was captain of Northeastern, and he was living in L.A., not doing very much. And he got a call from Coach Calhoun and that he was going to be able to be, if he asked him if he wanted to be assistant coach. Dave really had no assistant coaching experience at the time, but he took the offer, came back down to Northeastern. And then when Calhoun went to UConn, Dave went with him. And it's kind of funny because Kyle Hobbs ended up being an assistant coach too as well. I don't know who's calling me. But anyway, so that is interesting in itself. I became good friends with Calhoun. And it's kind of interesting that after that, Dave went on to coach at DePaul and Northeastern. And then he made another stint at UConn and came back at DePaul. And then he went to Missouri, University of Tulsa, and so many other things as well. So, that in itself is kind of strange. Kyle Hobbs' brother, Ron, played with me at Framingham State. You see how this kind of the little circle that we're all in? And then when Coach Jarvis went to St. John's, he had an assistant coach named Kevin Clark. Now, I played against Kevin Clark when he was at matter of fact, Clark University. Kevin Clark went to Clark University. We played him. They kind of put a beating on us, but I don't want to say that too loud. But anyway, he was a great ball player. And then he ended up becoming assistant coach at St. John's. And then I think he was a head coach for 1 year as well. So you know what I mean. It was kind of interesting in that regard. So it's like a little twist about me and Coach Jarvis. And matter of fact, I think here he is right now, my man,
Hey,
Coach Jarvis.
hey, Mike, how you doing?
I'm doing rather well. You know, Coach, I was just going over your accolades because I'm here to give you your flowers. I was giving you all your accolades, and I was just trying to touch base because we kind of have some kind of things in common. I was mentioning about when you were at BU and Kyle Hobbs was your assistant. Kyle Hobbs then went on to be assistant coach at UConn with one of my best friends in the world, Dave Lato.
Oh
And
yeah,
I played college ball with Kyle's brother Ron, and uh, and then your assistant coach at St. John was Kevin Clark. Kevin Clark played at Clark University out of Worcester,
that's
and
right.
I played against him. And then, of course, Pat Ewing. When it's sophomore year, I got to play against him as well. But first of all, I want to thank you for coming on my show, and it's just an honor, and I'm so glad that you were able to come on my show. And I was just going over before you came on. I was going all over your accolades, and it's amazing. I did not even know some of the stuff that you were doing and that you have done, and you know. Uh, Named National Coach of the Year in 1998 by the Black Coaches Association, served as president of the National Association of Basketball Coaches in 1997. You coached Pat Ewing to 3 state championships. You went 77-1. I did a little homework on you, Coach. I did a little homework. You know what I mean? I did a little homework. I had to come correct. But I'm here to give you your flowers. And Coach, before we go on and talk about your book, I guess you are author of 3 books. Before we go into that, I guess what going back when you, I guess at the beginning of your Cambridge Latin coaching days, what was it like back then in that era? Because a lot of people who are tuning in probably don't realize the situation that was in the Boston area. Same thing with me. I'm from New Bedford, so can you talk about that and leading up? I know you went to Cambridge Latin originally, but can you talk about how you ended up being a coach at Cambridge Latin, and then we can talk about your career after that.
Okay, well, first of all, uh, that was a time that you remember that there were very few blacks playing basketball. I mean, there was a handful of blacks when I played or when I sat in the bench in college at Northeastern. There was only a handful of guys that were playing in New England, and there were even fewer coaching.
Mm-hmm.
And fortunately for me, I played not only for a great coach in Dick Dukeshire at Northeastern, but a guy that would eventually give me a chance to coach with him. Because when I graduated from Northeastern, I went back to Cambridge to teach,
Mm-hmm.
and I was hoping to coach, but I couldn't get the coaching job at the high school. But like I said, fortunately for me, Coach Dukeshire hired me at Northeastern.
Mm-hmm.
So I coached as an assistant at Northeastern for 5 years. My
Wow.
last year at Northeastern, in fact, I was with Jim Calhoun,
Oh, okay.
and then I got a really great opportunity to coach with the legendary Celtics player Tom Sanders
Yes.
at Harvard. So I worked as his assistant for four
Wow.
years. So my
Wow.
first 9 years out of college, I worked as an assistant coach in college, and then the job that I wanted opened up, and I had an opportunity to get the Cambridge job. And of course, as the good Lord would have it, he opened up those doors at the same time that Patrick Ewing had come into Cambridge, and I had started to work with Pat. In fact, at the high school in the gym, not knowing that I'd ever coach him, but
Hmm.
I had the opportunity to coach him and so many. I mean, like great players. I mean, Cambridge has always had a history of having great high school basketball, and back then was probably maybe the golden era. I had guys like Patrick Ewing, I had Bill Ewing, I had Charlie Neal, Kevin Moore,
Yes.
Kevin. I
I
mean,
know.
on and on and on. I mean, I had so many fantastic players,
Yes. Mm.
and so I was blessed. And what happened was because of the success that we had at Cambridge, the athletic director at Boston University, Rick Taylor, decided that he would do something very unique. He would hire not only uh, a young African American coach, but a local guy, a high school coach, basically, at that time. And but he took a shot, and it worked out great for both of us. And Carl Hobbs was one of my assistants at BU.
Uh-huh.
We had some. I mean, we had some great years. In the 5 years we were there, we won over 100 games. Surpassed Rick Pitino as the number one winning team at BU. Um, and then that led to opportunities following that at George Washington and then St. John's. And I tell you what, I really, really, really have been blessed, and I will say that.
Coach, you definitely have. I mean, and I'm gonna get into a couple more of your accolades that I happen to research and find out. But what I'd like you to do, Coach, because people who are watching this and they say, "Well, Pat Ewing went to Cambridge Regional Latin and you coached him." Can you talk about? Because I know the problems that he faced when he first came to Cambridge. With people, criticizing him or making fun of him because he couldn't speak the language that good or things of that nature. And how did you handle that?
Well, fortunately for me, Patrick had a great family uh, support system led by
Mm-hmm.
his mother, Dorothy.
Mm-hmm.
Dorothy came from Jamaica, and she and her husband, Carl, brought the family members over one by one, and one of those ones was Patrick. And Cambridge was also a melting pot for folks migrating from the West Indies. So a lot of West Indian folks lived in Cambridge.
Mm-hmm.
Patrick joined that group.
Mm-hmm.
His mother worked at Mass General Hospital, became really good friends with my wife, Connie, who also was working in the sickle cell anemia unit at the hospital at that time.
Ooh, ooh.
And so she had a lot of faith, not only in God, but also in me and Connie and our family. And she entrusted Patrick to us and basically said, "Look, you take care of Patrick. I don't know anything about what's happening in basketball and recruiting, but I trust you." And she put Patrick basically in our hands and let us basically take care of the recruiting. And when Patrick was playing in high school, up until the time that he chose Georgetown,
Mm-hmm.
he was not only legendary, but he was also a hero because most of the folks thought he was going to, at least they were hoping he'd go to Boston College.
Oh yeah, of
When,
course. Mm-hmm.
when he chose Georgetown, it was like the world turned against him, at least the white Irish uh, Catholic world turned against him in the Boston area. And, they always made fun of him, but when they thought he was possibly going to go to BC or BU, it was a lot less. But when he chose Georgetown, I mean, it really heightened up. And, Boston, in fact, I always tell people, I grew up in Cambridge. And
Mm-hmm.
the difference between Cambridge and Boston was like night and day. Cambridge,
Hmm.
every neighborhood was mixed. All of us poor people, black, white, or whatever color we were, lived together. We all went to the neighborhood schools, the schools in our neighborhood, and eventually on to the high school. And it was a great place to grow up. Whereas Boston, with all its little cities within the city, was very segregated, very separate. In
Mm-hmm.
fact, every little part of Boston had its own city hall, and so Boston was completely different. Cambridge, like I said, you couldn't pick a greater city, a better city to grow up in. And Patrick's mother could not have picked a better city to live in.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I remember. Matter of fact, Ron, I was at Framingham State at the time, and he took me to go watch you guys, Pat Ewing and Cambridge Atlanta play. Can you tell the viewers the atmosphere? Because when I went in there, I played high school ball in front of 300 people. Tell them about the atmosphere and the excitement. That gym was complete. I can't even describe it. I went there. I've never seen a high school gym like that.
Well, well, first of all, any gym that we played in, when you had Patrick Ewing and you had a really great team around him, you knew you were
Yeah.
going to watch some great basketball, and you were going to see some
Yes.
things on a given night. I mean, LaDonna Deer or Kyle Hobbs
Yes.
could, could be throwing alley oop passes 3/4 court to Patrick on a full run where he would dunk, basically leaving his feet from the foul line. I mean, you saw things that you didn't see any other high school player, particularly of his size, do in basketball. So wherever we went, if it was a little gym that held 500 people, there'd be 800 people. If it was a gym that held 1,000, it'd be 1,500. If it was the Boston Garden, which held 13, it'd be 14, 15,000.
That's true. That's true.
Every gym was sold out, including the Boston Garden,
That's
because
crazy.
they knew they weren't going to probably have an opportunity to watch another Patrick Ewing play in their lifetime. And we only disappointed one night, and that was on a road game at Wilbur-Cross, where we lost to the state champs
Connecticut.
in Connecticut
Yeah.
in the middle of a snowstorm. In fact, it was the only game we lost with Patrick during my 3 years with Patrick. And I tell people the reason why we lost was real simple. Patrick was sick that night. He had basically walking pneumonia, and
Oh wow.
we just kept changing T-shirts like every 2 seconds. But he was so special and such a hardworking team player, never worrying about how many points he got. Only did we win, and we won 99% of the time.
Yes, you definitely did. You definitely did. Um, th- Outstanding. You now. I read. I don't know if it's true or not, but I'm sure you'll let me know. You had another player, I think, that you coached. I mean, he had a pretty good career as well. I think he goes by the name of let me see, Ramil Robinson.
Oh, Ramil, another young man, another young man from Jamaica. We were so fortunate that Cambridge really was a home for so many, like I said, West Indians and folks from Jamaica and Barbados. I mean, Haiti, they came to Cambridge because they knew they could live in Cambridge,
Wow.
raise their family, get a good education, and be welcome. And Ramil Robinson, uh, likewise, I mean, he grew up came up through our grammar school program, and there was only like three players. Maybe it's changed since, but there was Patrick, there was Ramil, and then it was Lance Doughton, who went on to play football at Michigan.
Yes.
Those were the only three kids that started as a freshman at the high school. That's how good those guys were. And obviously, Ramil Robinson led Michigan to a national championship. You
I
know,
sure did.
when he hit the game-winning free throws against Seton Hall in Seattle in front of a sold-out uh, Coliseum there. So he was incredible. I mean, so you had the best center in the country, and then 3 or 4 years later, you had probably the best guard in the country.
Absolutely. Coach, that's what I wanted to do to begin. Me giving you your flowers is talking about, you coaching uh, Cambridge Ranger Lanton and the great success you guys had, 77-1. That is absolutely incredible. And then let's go on a little further. Now, after that, you went to BU. Am I correct?
That's right, and that's you mentioned. That's
Talk
when
about that
Kyle Hobbs.
experience.
That's when Kyle Hobbs. My wife said, why don't you hire Kyle as an assistant? He was such a great player. He's got such a great personality. He'd be a great recruiter.
Yes.
And I always listened
Uh-huh.
to my wife. And I talked to Kyle, and he said, Coach, I really would like to coach college basketball. So I hired Kyle, and
Hmm.
like I said, during those years, we had a lot of success. And the
And
other
then
thing,
look what happened.
and let me just mention one other name that people are going to
Sure.
recognize. When I went to BU, um, they had some very good players. I mean, like I said, it wasn't like I inherited bad. I inherited good players. They just didn't really know how to win yet. So that was my job. And on that first squad I had a young, thin, very, very weak, but incredibly gifted scoring two guard by the name of Dredrick Irving. The name Irving should
Ah,
sound
yes.
familiar. Kyrie Irving's dad was my leading
Yeah,
scorer
that's
at BU in his last two
wow.
years. And so we had some really
Wow.
good players. And Rick Pitino had recruited, some, and John Custer, who was there before me, had recruited some really good players. But like I said, hadn't, they didn't know how to really play together yet. And we were fortunate that we were able to get them to use their God given talents as a team and win a lot of games.
And you stood there for 5 years, and then you went on to St. John's.
No, I went to George Washington University. Uh, when
Okay.
when I was at BU, we were in the North Atlantic Conference, and in our
Hmm.
conference, one of the schools was Hartford, and we used to play. In fact, the league tournament, the tournament that was held at the end of the year to decide who was going to go to the NCAA was held in Hartford, and I became good friends of Bob Chernak, who was a vice president at Hartford. In fact, one year he invited my wife and I and my son to go to dinner with him. And at dinner, he said, Coach, he said, I don't know how long I'm going to be at Hartford, but wherever I go, I'm going to be calling you to see if you would come and work with me. So when he went on from Hartford, he and the president, Steve Trachtenberg, took over the lead positions at George Washington University. And sure enough,
Hmm.
a year later, he called me and said, Coach, I'm now at George Washington. We don't have much right now, but I think we can build something special here in the nation's capital. And he recruited me to go to GW. And, once again, my wife said, why not? Let's take a shot. Let's leave, these
Wow.
comfortable surroundings. Let's go to the nation's capital. And we went to Washington, D.C. And, once it was a very simple, I took over the program for the same person that I had taken over at BU, and that was John Custer. And once again, good players, but just really not together yet. So I was able to get those guys to blend, and we went on to have, some incredible years. In fact, in '93, we lost to the Fab Five in the Sweet 16 in Seattle,
Ooh.
Washington.
Ooh.
And
Wow. I
actually,
didn't know that.
oh yeah, in fact, we took a lead late in that game, and they beat us because we didn't do a good enough job blocking out on free throws. Chris Webber and Jawan Howard and Jimmy Jackson, they each got an offensive rebound on a missed free throw that they put back, and I think we lost that
Oh,
game by 4 or 5 points. We took the lead
wow.
late in the game. We were down big early in the first half. We pressed them, came back from 17 down. We took the lead with a few minutes to go. We probably should have waited another minute or two before taking the lead, but nevertheless, we took the lead. But they were talented. That's why they were the Fab Five. And so
Right.
even though we lost, that game really helped to put GW on the map.
Outstanding. That's phenomenal. I didn't know you guys went against Michigan. I had no idea.
Yeah,
I should do my research a little bit better.
no,
So
you
how
did.
long did you stay at George Washington?
I was there 8 years,
8 years.
and it was the only place when we left that my wife cried. My wife loved Washington, D.C., particularly GW and the church that we went to, which was Metropolitan AME Church. My wife, she just loved it, but she also loved her husband even more. And she decided, you know what, this is an opportunity, to go to St. John's and the Big Apple, and basically do something that not too many kids from Cambridge get a chance to do.
So talk about your experiences when you first go to St. John's in the Big Apple, New York City, playing the Big East against the best of the best. What was that like?
Well, the night that we got the job, I remember I said to we had a limousine service, and I said, just take us on a ride through the city. Let's go through Manhattan. So we're driving, up Fifth Avenue and past Madison Square Garden, and I look up, and that marquee that goes around, you see on New Year's Eve,
Mhm.
going around and around. I look up and I see, St. John's in New York want to welcome Mike and Connie Jarvis. And that's
Wow.
how it began, with us being basically welcomed into New York and into Manhattan on the marquee, on the big board that, like I said, just goes round and round. And you know what? We had we I mean we won a lot of games, over 100 games in the 5 years.
Hmm.
Um, we made the NCAA tournament 3 years. We went to the Elite Eight with players like Ron Artest, who eventually became World Meta Peace, Eric Barkley, a lot of really outstanding New York kids, and players from Baltimore like Bootsy Thornton.
Hmm.
And we had. I mean, hey, I tell you how good we were. Those 2 years where not only did we, tie for the league championship one year. In fact, that we won the Big East tournament in Madison Square Garden and cut down the nets. But during that year, we had one of the most incredible weeks in college basketball history. We beat, in the same week, in 1 week, we beat Syracuse, Connecticut, and Duke in in the same week. In at the end of February, the beginning of March, I want to say in the year 1999, we did something that very few teams could have ever done. I mean, you're talking about beating three of the best teams in the country
Absolutely.
in 1 week, from Sunday to Sunday. And the win at Duke, it took 25 years for another team to win, another non-conference ACC team to win at Duke. So I mean, nobody went in there and won, but we did.
That is absolutely incredible. Now, folks, what you may not know is that Coach Jarvis won over 100 games at three different universities, which is totally incredible. By the way, I think that's phenomenal. He won three state championships, went 77-1. He's in the Hall of Fame at George Washington. I mean, what an outstanding career. Hopefully, he comes back. But I want that if he does come back. Again, it was great having him come on the show. He's a tremendous person, and we want to get back and talk about his 7 seasons of leadership as well. But I wanted to go back to when he began in high school. I mean, coaching the great Pat Ewing, and he talked about the great players out of Cambridge. I got to know a lot of them players. Of course, played against most of them, and also, became good friends with the Elcocks and the Adaires, and there's so many that great players. You know what I mean? And he had the opportunity to coach them, and I'm telling you, folks, what an atmosphere going in to see Cambridge Van Latin and Pat Ewing and all the Hop. I mean, it was absolutely incredible. Hopefully he comes back on. But I wanted to give him his flowers and thank him for coming on my show. And it's just an outstanding career. And what he also did, what folks probably don't know, him and his son were the first father-son coaches in the history at the time of the NCAA. He brought his son along with him, which I wanted to bring up if he comes back on. Imagine that. So he did a lot of things that like the first in the history, like he talked about. He talked about, back then there weren't many players of color playing that much. And then, of course, there weren't many coaches. So, I mean, obviously people had enough, confidence in him that he could do the job. And obviously it panned out very well. And he also did a stint at Florida Atlantic, which we'll discuss if he comes back on. But, it's been a great experience going over his bio and all the things that he has accomplished, the great players that have played for him. And then even going to St. John's and Ron Artest at BU, Diedrich Irving, who happens to be Kyrie's dad. Diedrich came down to New Bedford and played in our shootout as well. and so did Kyle Hobbs, and so I mean, it's like a kind of like it's kind of cool, you know what I mean? Talking to Coach Jarvis, and how it kind of like a little circle that we have. He coached in the Big East, one of my best friends, assistant coach at UConn in the Big East. So I mean, it was a great time when the Big East was really the Big East. Again, the sellout crowds at Madison Square Garden, and it was phenomenal. And then I had the opportunity when UConn did win the NCAA, the first one, NCAA championship. I went to the parade, and we haven't gone back to the conference room, whatever, and get to see all the players after they had, won the NCAA championship. And it was a great honor to go see that as well. But again, getting back to Coach Jarvis, he's written 3 books, and I wanted to discuss with him the last one he was working on, or he has worked on, which is the 7 C's of Leadership, which I think is a phenomenon. I want to get in touch with him as well as that, and also talk to him about the mental aspect. Because if you guys been tuning into my show, I had Dr. Heather Locken and Brandon Texera last night, and before that, Dr. Heather Locken talking about the mind performance and how the mental aspect is so crucial in the development of youth, as far as them academically and athletically as well, and the importance of having that mindset. You know what I mean? Because when you think about it, we all, as athletes, we train our bodies to be the best that it can be. But sometimes we got to train. Well, not matter of fact, most of the time you got to train your mind, because being an athlete doing anything is really tough, and especially being an athlete because everybody's watching you. And if you develop and you have skills, the more pressure's on you. You know what I mean? So it's tough. You got to be mentally tough. You got to be mentally strong and be able to handle adversity and the recruiting. And what I really wanted to talk to him, if he gets back on, what I really wanted to touch base with him, not only about his book, but about the NIL, name, image, and likeness, number 1. And then, of course, the transfer portal, number 2. And just get his feedback on what he thinks about where he coaching in today's game. How would that interaction be? And as far as the recruiting, because as you guys probably know, a lot of the old coaches, they said, nah, we're done. We're not going to deal with that NIL stuff. You know what I mean? So right now, and it's a crucial thing, because if a player is upset with his playing time or upset with anything, and he just decides to, go, he can go, he can leave. And it's just like that, and, right now the players are playing for the name on the back as opposed to playing for the name on the front. And I think that, and NIL, I think, has to go through some real changes. But then again, I don't know how they're going to do it, because they've already opened Pandora's box. Because now they're paying players 4, 5, 6, 8 million. Do you know what I mean? I don't know how they're going to back it up and make it more, I guess, amenable to, all colleges and all players. But you got 1 or 2 players. But I guess that's the way it is. I'm glad that the players get paid, because I think they all should get paid. Men, women, they all should get paid. But I just think that, it's important for them to get paid. But I just think that it takes away like the, you know what I mean? Like, the rivalries, because a lot of players now 1 and done, or they go to another college and they don't like it there. They go to another college. And I have my reservations about that as well. But again, I wanted to thank Coach Jarvis. I don't know what happened, but hopefully he comes on. We got about 25 minutes to go in here, but I'm glad that he was able to talk a little bit about his experiences being a head coach at Cambridge Winds and Lanton, because that was folks, that was incredible time. I mean, Pat Ewing was phenomenal. I mean, 77-1, and like I said, they would draw so many large crowds to the games. And me coming from I'm from Bedford, Mass. We thought we had a lot of people. There was like 300, 400, maybe 500. You know what I mean? I didn't get to play in front of big crowds until I was in college. And I mean, every game was like phenomenal. And I went there. I mean, they had the cheerleaders, the music. It was It was incredible, absolutely incredible. And I mean, this guy, Coach Jarvis, to start off like you said from the beginnings, and then to go on and like I said, 77 and one in high school. He got NABC Coach of the Year. He's in the Hall of Fame at George Washington. He was a sportscaster on ESPN and various other stations. I mean, this guy he's done it all. And now he's at, I guess recently he was at Florida Atlantic. He's written 3 books. I mean, what more? I mean, he just an incredible person, and I wanted to give him his flowers. So I'm glad he came on for the time he came on. Maybe something happened. I'm not sure. But again, I want to thank him for coming on. I was going to tell him too that Michael Graham, who is a former player at Georgetown, who played with Pat Ewing, when he found out that Coach Jarvis was going to be on my show, he contacted me and said, how can I watch it? I wanted to give him a shout out to Coach Jarvis as well, but apparently there might be some difficulties going on, which I'm not sure. But, again, it's just been incredible. I've had an incredible week. I mean, with Coach Jarvis, Dr. Heather Locken. I mean, it's been absolutely incredible. We're talking about the mental aspect, the mental performance. That's why I wanted to get in touch with him about that. Him being a coach, him being an author about the 7 C's of leadership. How's that going on with the mental? Because right now, as you notice, things that are going on in this country, in the world, all these shootings and stuff, they always relate it back to the mental. What was the individual's mental capacity? What was his mind going through? And, and then Dr. Locken was talking about all the athletes who have committed suicide. I mean, not even the ones that, coming from war. I mean, excuse me, the mental aspect is so powerful. And I'm honored to have Dr. Locken on my show, along with Brandon Texera. And Dr. Locken will be coming on my show on the 24th as well. So, we got a lot of great guests coming on. I'm not going to stay too long. I just wanted to, be able to give Coach Jarvis his flowers. I mean, I just think he's a great individual. He's an outstanding coach. I followed his career from the get-go. I knew all about him when he was at BU and, George Washington and St. John's. And, he's just a great person. And I wanted him on my show before, but we had technical difficulties back then as well. So I'm not going to go on for an hour and just because I got so many guests coming on in the next couple of weeks. It was just good to have him on. And like I said, he's a busy man. He's really into his religion. He's a man of God as well. And I wanted to get his perspective on that as well. You know what I mean? So again, I don't know what transpired, but hopefully he comes on. I'll go about 5 more minutes and then I'm probably going to call it a day because we got some great guests coming on. Oh man, it's been busy, but I mean, it's what I love to do. And thanks to my producer, the boss, Keith Williams, I keep hitting her up. Hey man, can we do it on Thursday? Can we do shows on Friday? But I was looking forward to the NBA coming up, and there she is, the one and only. I don't know what happened to Coach Jarvis, boss. I don't know what happened, but hopefully he comes on.
If he needs to come back on, just reschedule. Maybe phone died or something. Who knows?
Something might have happened. So now that I got you here, boss, you know what I mean? What's your take on tonight's WNBA game?
So before we get into that,
all right,
let me tell you how Natasha Cloud was downtown and I didn't even know it. I
really?
seen her yesterday.
Oh, wow.
Because Unrivaled is coming to Philly in January.
I didn't know that. Oh, okay.
So, all the stuff that's going on with Nafisha Collier and the
yes,
and the commissioner.
Yes.
Well, Nafisa Collier actually really damaged her shin and ankle with that collision her and Alyssa Thomas had.
Yes.
She got a grade 2 ligament tear somewhere. So she might not even be playing in Unrivaled. That's her and Brianna Stewart. That's their league. So they made it to where WNBA players don't have to go overseas to get some extra money.
Mm-hmm.
So it had a real good turnout the first year. So they bringing it back. And it's coming to Philly. So I'm excited about that. So Natasha Cloud is actually from the area, so that's why she was down there. She played, she played. Awesome. She went to St. Joe's. She played, her college career in Philly. So
now that I got you on, boss, I gotta ask you. Now I got you. I got you now, so I'm glad. What do you think about that little comments that was made regarding the I guess it's the commission of the WNBA? What's your take on it?
I don't know. She just don't lack the leadership that the WNBA needs. And here comes Mike now. Just the leadership that she don't need. And then she gonna say oh, Nafisa misdrewed my words. No, she didn't. She came back. She didn't like them, and she got receipts. You just got caught your hand in the cookie jar. That's all.
Yeah, true that, absolutely.
But I'm gonna go back behind the scenes. Here's your guy.
We got Coach Jarvis back in the building.
Hey, I am so sorry. We had a little storm action that went through, and my internet, everything went down, and I apologize. And
no problem.
I hope it doesn't happen again. But thanks for hanging in there, brother.
Of course, man. For you, anytime, Coach. Anytime. When that happened to you, I was just going back, talking about you and coaching high school and your coaching career. Also, I was talking about some of the things you did were history making. Talk about, because I know for a fact you won before you went off, you won 100 games with 3 different teams. At that time was the only one to ever do that, if I'm correct, at that time. And so that must have been real special for you, I'm sure.
It really was. In fact, I believe I was the second guy. I think Lefty Drizel had done that before me. But I can say this, that I'm the only coach in basketball history that ever won 100 games or more at 3 different colleges, plus 100 or more games as a high school coach.
That is correct. That is correct.
Absolutely. Hey, I'll applaud myself and my players for that one.
I hear you. Now, there's one other thing that we didn't talk about that you were, again, I'm just going back by your bio, so you're going to correct me if I'm wrong. You and your son, if I'm correct, were the first father and son Black coaches to coach in the history of college basketball. Is that correct?
That's right. That also happened in 1993 when my son graduated from Boston University. I hired him as my assistant. And in that very first year that he was with me, that's when we went to the Sweet 16. And I tell you what, people often ask me, what was one of the most memorable nights that you ever had in coaching? And I would say, I've got so many, but obviously when I say that, I mean like at the high school level, the year we won our first state championship, at BU, I mean, winning there, and then obviously at GW going to the Sweet 16, but with my son by my side, coming out in front of 40,000 people in Seattle, I mean, I can't even describe how I felt that night. And then, obviously he coached with me at St. John's as well, and then he coached with me at FAU, our last stop together. And, he was a real integral part of the success that we had, because I always knew, number one, that he had my back, that he would tell me things that other guys, including coaches, wouldn't tell me. I mean, he could be totally transparent, totally honest, and he always was. And he, great basketball mind, and we coached. We were the first, and we coached together for almost 20 years.
That's incredible. That's phenomenal. That's absolutely unbelievable. Now, Coach, I got you. Before we talk about your book in the 7 C's of leadership, which I definitely want to get into, because I want to discuss that because I want to get your opinion on the mental aspect of it. I'll explain why in a few minutes. So going back over your career, you just spoke about, one of the things that really stood out is being there with your son, having him as your assistant coach, and coaching in front of 40,000 people in Seattle. And I mean, you've had so many accolades. I mean, you in the Hall of Fame. Talk about that. You being in the Hall of Fame, George Washington. Talk about that.
Well, there's, you know what? I mean, honestly, the one Hall of Fame, I guess the only one that most people really consider the Hall of Fame, I'm not in. So I'll start by saying that. If things had gone differently and my career had been extended at St. John's, I possibly could be, because I know we would have had a lot of 21 seasons ahead of us, but that wasn't to be. But being in the high school Hall of Fame, the Massachusetts high school coaches, New England coaches, George Washington. I mean, I can say I'm in like 4 Hall of Fames, not the big one though. Okay. Right. And who knows, maybe someday, after I pass away, they'll say, let's put this Jarvis guy in the Hall of Fame. You never know.
I mean, obviously I got no say, but I think you should be in there. If it was up to me, I don't have any say, but you've had such a phenomenal career. That's why I wanted to have you on my show to give you your flowers. Because it's what you've accomplished. I mean, of course, it's through your players, but what you have accomplished is something that's really incredible. And the things that you made history about is, I think, it's absolutely phenomenal. That a lot more people should look at. That's kind of why I wanted you on the show too. Because,
okay.
You made an impact on so many people. I'm gonna tell you one quick story, if I might, just one quick one. I'm from New Bedford, Mass, and when matter of fact, 2 things. One of the players, matter of fact, I guess he's in his 50s now. When he found out you were coming on my show, he spoke very highly of you. Now, he must have been, I don't know how young, maybe 8, 9, 10. You did a shoot straight clinic at the New Bedford Boys and Girls Club. And he told me about how much that made an impact on him. And his name is Mosadi Caldwell. And he said he thinks you tried to recruit him, I think, way back when. You probably don't know. But he remembers you. And, so you must have made a major impact. After all these years, he still talks about that particular program. He said, make sure you tell Coach Jarvis. I said, I definitely will.
Well, what's the fella's name? Is it Ron Lumber?
Ron Lumber.
Yes.
Yes.
We in fact, we had New Bedford had one of our satellite shoot straight programs. We had programs in different cities, and New Bedford was one of them.
Yes.
In fact, it was one of the best places. And I can remember a few different occasions where they brought kids in to play. We used to have our kids play like before Celtics games at the Boston Garden. And Ronnie, brought me and brought the Shoot Straight program to New Bedford. And we were sponsored at that time by the Bank of Boston. And it was a great youth program, co-ed, boys and girls. We used smaller balls, lower baskets, 8-foot baskets, 8.5 feet high, and mini basketballs. And it was a great program. And, yes, I remember coming to New Bedford on many an occasion, doing clinics and having our Shoot Straight program there. Absolutely.
Wow. But I mean, after all these years, he just said, make sure you let Coach Jarvis know what a great impact that made on his career. He ended up playing at BU and, University of New Hampshire.
Okay.
University of New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Now he's a big time referee now. He's a big time referee. So,
okay.
But anyway, that's number 1. Number 2, Coach, when I promoted you coming on my show, and I've been trying to get him to come on my show, but he hasn't done it yet. But once he found out you were coming on my show, he said, oh, how can I go and watch? how can I go and see it? I said, well, he says, it's on YouTube. I said, it's on YouTube, Roku TV. I think you might know this individual. His name is Michael Graham, who played at Georgetown.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he was he was the enforcer with Patrick. He was the
yes. That's why he won. Once he found out you were coming on, now it captivated his interest.
Well, you know,
he's tuning in right now. He'll be watching right now, matter of fact.
Okay. Well, I tell you what, I watched him many a night, and I watched how much of an impact he had on Georgetown's success. He was the enforcer. He was like when Red Auerbach put his teams together. Red always had one guy that sort of kept everybody else in line, whether it be Jungle Jim Luskatov or, you know, whoever. I mean, and that's what his role was at Georgetown. I mean, if you went anywhere near the basket, you were going to get hurt. And he was a heck of a player, and he did his job very well.
Yeah, I follow him on Facebook. He's doing some great things. He has his own podcast as well. I'm sure you'll be on it pretty soon. I would imagine.
Now, tell him,
no, we don't have that much time. I will definitely do that. As soon as we leave out there, I'm going to definitely have him call you. But you know something, Coach? Let's talk about your book, The 7 C's of Leadership. But before we go into that, let me explain how I wanted you to talk about your book, not to only promote it and all the great things that come out of it, but the last show, matter of fact, the last 2 shows I've had a lady by the name of Dr. Heather Locken. And right now, what she came on my show, and which was very well received, was she was talking about mental performance and the mental aspect of it, dealing with youth and athletics and stuff of that nature. Yeah. And I wanted to see if how that would tie in with your book, The 7 C's of Leadership. Because, you know, right now she came out with all kind of figures about the percentage of athletes who commit suicide and things of that nature, and the importance of the mental, because, you know, as athletes, you know, you train your body to be the best that it can be, but you forget to train your mind. What is your take on that?
Well, first of all, you know, I always tell my players, and still do, that the game is won from the neck up, more so than from the neck down. And the players who are the mentally toughest, the players that basically can lead themselves and their teammates, are going to be the ones that normally end up cutting down the nets. So the mental aspect, the leadership aspect, you know, is such an integral part of sport and of success, whether it be on or off the court. And it's one of the reasons why, you know, I decided to basically write a couple of books that dealt with, you know, first of all, the 7 C's of leadership. There's 7 C's, and it starts with, you know, confidence, and it's also a book that that's basically faith-based, you know, with a lot of Christian principles, biblical principles, and it all starts with having confidence, not just in yourself, but having confidence in the fact that you can accomplish great things because of whose you are. And that, you know, it's not just about us. We were made in the image of God, and he wants us to be successful. And we can go in and attempt to do anything. Doesn't mean we're going to necessarily get it done all the time, but we can attempt to do anything because he's with us. So I start with confidence, and then another C in the book, which is very, very important, is courage. You know, you can't do anything if you don't believe you can. So you got to be confident. You got to be courageous. But then, how do you get your courage? You get your courage usually through people who encourage you. So within the word encouragement is that you can find the word courage. So we get courage through the encouragement that we get from starting with our parents. You know, I was raised primarily by my mom, like many, unfortunately, too many black kids, True. You know, single family homes. But that one person sometime, you know, can be just as effective as 2. And, you know, we get encouraged by our first coach, which is usually our mother. and we can get and we can try things because of their encouragement. And then, we go into character. It's who we are, what we do, not necessarily what we say. And then, of course, communication is incredibly important. I mean, we have to communicate, with our team, with our coaches, with our parents, with anybody that we work with. So communication is another C. I could go on and on and on, but the 7 C's are basic principles that we grow up with, and that we're basically that are instilled in us primarily by our teachers and our parents, and by, if we're fortunate enough, with a good church home. And in fact, I was asked to basically establish a course which I'm teaching online, a 3-credit college course at South Florida Bible College. And the other thing you probably don't even know, Coach, is that at the young age of 80, I am coaching again. I'm coaching the basketball team, a startup program at South Florida Bible College in Deerfield Beach, Florida. I've got, in fact, we'll start playing games in a couple of weeks, but I've got a great group of young men. Most of them, they love the game. They're not necessarily great at the game, not yet, but it's been fun putting the team together, and we're gonna compete. It's gonna be fun.
That is phenomenal. Wow.
But let me close. I don't know if we're almost done, but I want to say this, because the most important game that I probably have ever played in my life is the one that I'm playing right now, and that is, my wife not too long ago was diagnosed with FTD, frontal temporal dementia.
Oh.
And it is a cruel, unforgiving, right now, no cure disease. And unfortunately, there are so many people, millions of people, that are suffering from it. And my wife is in a memory care facility right now.
Oh, man.
Oh, I know. And I've never, I went, they gave me the nickname Dr. Coach at South Florida Bible College. But I've recently given myself a new nickname. I am the Weeping Coach, because I have never cried so much in my whole life as I have been over the last month or two, last couple of months. I mean, I reach over. Sometimes I'm lying in the bed, and it's like, the presence of my wife is there, but she's not. And I just want to say that, one of the games that I'm going to play going forward is, I'm going to try to see what I can do to create more awareness to Alzheimer's and dementia, to really get people to understand the importance of the caregiver and how vital they are. And I'm going to try to see if I can make a difference. Maybe we can, it can help to somehow be part of finding a cure for the disease, because it's awful. I mean, it goes beyond. I can't even describe it. And anytime anybody mentions, ask me how is my wife doing, I basically come to tears, because I see her almost every day, and it's just tough. It's the toughest thing I've ever had to deal with in my life.
Coach, we talked about all your accolades and what a great career you have, but what you're going through is way more important, and all I can do is offer my prayers, and wow.
Well, you know what? That's more than enough. Trust me. I mean, I think that's the first thing, that people.
I think he went up again, man. I did not. Wow. Wow. I did not know, folks. I did not know what he was going through. Just like Dr. Locken had said, you don't know what you don't know. I did not know. And to me, that's devastating and debilitating. And wow. That's why life is so important. That's why mental aspect is so important. And wow. Whew. Wow. I don't have much more to say than that. I will text him Maybe he can come on again. And I don't know. I did not want the show to go that route, but I'm glad he opened up. And folks, life is too short. That's why we gotta pray and keep the faith, and whatever it takes to keep you going, man. I had enough. All I'll say is, folks, thank you for tuning into my show, Sports Corner with the Conn Man, and my guest, Coach Mike Jarvis. We spoke about his great accolades, and I didn't even know. We're talking about all the great things, but this is way more important, and it puts things in perspective. You know what I mean? So, folks, I want to thank you guys for tuning in, and listen to what he said. He's trying to do things for dementia, and anything we can do to help. I don't know. I'm going to ask him to come on again. Probably not right away, because I know he's going through some tough times right now. So, folks, again, I want to thank you guys for tuning in to Sports Corner with the Conn Man on Sports Wave Network. May you all have a good night, and say some prayers for Coach Jarvis and his wife, and keep them in your thoughts and prayers. And that's all I got to say for tonight, people. You all have a good night. God bless. Thank you.